What's up everyone? Welcome to Mammoth Interactive's course on a side-scrolling shooter game made in GameMaker. The objective here is to survive as long as you can. So you're going to have a ship, you're going to be able to move that ship up or down, and that ship is always moving to the right, so more enemies are appearing from time to time, and you have to evade them all and shoot at them to open space and then simply survive for as long as you can. So this course is targeted for beginners. If this is your first time making a GameMaker game, if you don't know how to program and you want to learn how to do that, how to write some lines of code, or if you just want to learn something new, something interesting and cool that you can later challenge your friends with, then this is going to work just fine for you. My name is Glauco Pires. I've been working in the game industry since 2010, and throughout the years I've learned how to make games in several different platforms and technologies. So I worked with Unity, with HTML5, with Flash. I've made games in several platforms and on GameMaker as well, of course. So I have some experience that I'd like to share with you, and I divided this lesson in different topics. So we're going to separately talk about collisions, talk about movement, talk about interface, and then we should be able to learn how to make this game in a very slow and nice pace. Okay? So if you don't own GameMaker Studio yet, you can go to the Yo-Yo Games website to create a new account. And after you create an account, you should activate a free license, and then you should be able to download GameMaker Studio. When you have GameMaker Studio, install it and run it, we're going to move to the next lesson and learn how to set up a project and understand the most important concepts in GameMaker. I hope you're excited to start this, and I see you soon. Once you open GameMaker Studio and log into your account, you should see this very simple interface here with several tabs to select. You're going to choose New, so we open this screen here, and we're going to make a new project. In Project Directory, we're going to choose a folder where our games are going to be stored. So every game is in a different project. There's going to be a folder that is going to store each of your games, so they're not going to share code or share art, and that's for the greater good because it keeps things organized. So for the folder, I have my home folder here, and I like to create a projects folder or a workspaces one. Okay, it's not a good idea to mix up with things in the desktop or the documents folder, so go ahead and make a folder like that one. And in the project name, let's name this side-scrolling shooter. And let's hit create, and after a few seconds, the interface should open for you, right? At the top we have several tools, several buttons to select, and even the target build. So if you want your games to run on Android or HTML5, you can choose them here, but you're going to have a special account, not just a free one. But the things that we're going to use the most are the save the game button here. If you click, the project is going to be saved, and you have also a run the game where you are able to see your game running. But the things that matter the most here is the hierarchy tree that you see here at the left. The hierarchy tree is a structure very similar to the one you have in your operational system. So you have a home folder like the one I just showed you, for example, and in that home folder you're going to see other folders like documents, downloads, images, music, videos. So that is more or less how it works on GameMaker. You have a root folder, which is where we see all of these things, and there are several subfolders. So we got sprites, sounds, backgrounds, fonts, objects, rooms, and each of these folders contain the files that make sense for them. So in the sprites folder, we're going to have sprites. In the paths folder, we're going to have different paths there. And you can even organize in other subfolders if you want. The things that we use the most in this game are going to be sprites, we're going to use backgrounds as well, we're going to use objects, and finally use rooms. Okay, this is everything we need to make this game come to life. So let's start taking a look at sprites. Let's right click in the sprites folder and select create sprite. So sprites can be two things. They can be a still image, so there's going to be a graphic asset that is going to stand still, or it could be an animation. Okay, so it could be, for instance, if you make a bicycle, you can draw several frames for that bicycle and make it give the illusion that it is moving. Okay, you can give the illusion of movement by changing images in different frames. But we're going to use a still image. So as we want to make a ship, let's name this sprite as ship. But there is a good practice in GameMaker, and that good practice is you start with typing the abbreviation of whatever you're making. So let's start with SPR. So that's it, SPR underscore ship. If you have a ship image, you can click on load sprite to load that image from your computer. But as we want to make things as bare bones as possible, let's click on edit sprite so we draw a ship. Okay, you're going to see this window as well here, which is the sprite editor. And if you click here on create a new sprite, there's going to be a new window for you where you have to choose the size of the ship in the horizontal axis and in the vertical axis. So let's set this as 32 by 32, the full values that we have here. Now we click OK. We're going to see a little square here, which is our ship image. If we wanted to make an animation, there would be several empty images here, but we're going to use only one. So we double click it, and let's use this tool here to give a nice zoom to this image so we can draw this better. Notice there are several squares here in different tones of gray, but this is just GameMaker telling you that this image is completely transparent. Right, so let's draw our ship. We have several tools available in this window here in this image editor. So you can choose a pencil, you can choose an eraser, a line tool, and you can also choose polygon tools like the polygon, rectangle, ellipse, and rounded rectangle. We're going to choose polygon. Okay, so when we choose a polygon tool, here we have a shape where you can select how this polygon is going to be drawn. We're going to choose outline and fill, which is the default one. And when you choose that, notice that you need two colors. You need an outline color, which is the stroke of whatever you're making, and the fill color, which is the center of what you're seeing here. So I want to choose white as the outline. To do that, I left click on the white color, and for the fill color, I'm going to choose blue. So I right click on the blue color. So you got left and right, stroke and fill. And to draw the ship, we can just click here on draw polygon, and we're simply going to click and drag around. Okay, so let me do it like this. Okay, so we start by drawing the first line. We're going to make a second one, and then we make this ship. Okay, let me draw it a bit like this. Okay, there's going to be a little part where it stands. And it's up to you to draw whatever you want here, whatever you like. So I'm just doodling around until I find a nice shape for this ship. I want to do something like this. And finally, okay, here and here. Okay, that's the ship that I wanted to make. And notice one thing, it is important that the front of the ship is facing right. Okay, because if you want to make any rotations later in this game, this is considered to be the original rotation. Okay, whatever you're pointing right. So if you want to add other details on the ship, you can use the pencil tool and just maybe do things like this one here. Okay, it's up to you to give the details, or to just load an image that you already have in your computer. That is going to work just fine as well. Okay, so this should be it for that sprite. Now we click on this green check mark to close the image editor. Let's click here again, and you see that our sprite is here. It is a good practice also to click on this center button, so the origin of the image is in the middle of the ship, because if we want to rotate it later on, the rotation is going to work properly. Alright, now let's click OK to save that sprite. And now that we have a sprite, how do I add a sprite to a game? Okay, how do we make a room and we put the ship in that room, whatever that room is? So the thing is, sprites, they don't behave in the game. Okay, you can't by just dropping a sprite in the game, you can't change its scale, you can't apply physics, you can't rotate it, you can't apply any complex game logic to a sprite. Because the things that do that are objects. Objects are the main entities in game development on GameMaker. So we have to make a ship object. Let's right click on the objects folder. We're going to select create object. Let me maximize that. And the name of this is going to be OBJ, because that's the abbreviation of what we're making. And it's going to be ship. Here in Sprite, we're going to click on this button here to select the Sprite ship. Okay, so it's going to look like that. And that's all we need to do for making an object. We have several other things to look at. We have events, actions, masks, and parents. However, we don't have to worry about that right now. Okay, we're simply going to click OK and verify that in the objects folder, our ship object now contains a thumbnail that is exactly the ship sprite. Now finally, I want to position that ship somewhere. Okay, I want it to be available for use somewhere, and I want to see it in the middle of a screen. So to do that, we need to make a room. Let's right click on rooms and choose create room and maximize this window as well. So rooms, they are like screens or scenes. There are several names you can give rooms. So there are a certain window, okay, which contains a certain size where you're going to position your objects and see all your game working. So for the name of the room, we're going to use rm_game. The size, I'm going to use 800 pixels of width and 640 pixels of height. So that's the size in the horizontal and vertical axis. And the speed is how quickly your game is going to be processed by your processor. Either it is running on a notebook or on a smartphone, a smart TV, whatever platform it is running at. If we use 60, this is nearly as smooth as possible. But when you do that, you have to be very careful with performance. Okay? And for instance, if you use 15, for example, that is going to be much slower, but there's a much lower chance to have performance issues. So you have to balance that, and you need to be careful to what speed you choose and how much processing power you're going to require. But since we're going to make a very simple game, let's just use 60 here. This is going to work just fine. Okay. Now we're going to click here to save this window just to make sure the name is here, and let's open it again. And everything that's missing now is adding the ship to this screen. To do that, we're going to the Objects tab, and where it says Object to add with left mouse, let's make sure we have obj_ship selected. If it isn't, later in the game, if you're doing something else, we just click here and choose obj_ship. And after that, let's just click in the room. Okay, and we have a ship right here in the middle. After we are done with that, we can click now on Run the Game. So we wait for the project to be saved, for any code to be compiled, and then we have our window and we have a ship sitting here in the middle. Okay, so right now we have a ship in the middle of a gray room, but that doesn't make sense. That ship needs to be in space, of course. So we're going to learn how to make a background to this room in the next video. Making a background is very simple. Just like we did with sprites, objects, and rooms, we're going to the Backgrounds folder here. We're going to right click and select Create Background. Let's name this BKG underscore space, and we now click on Edit Background. Okay, so we open our familiar image editor here. So to make it look dark, let's choose the Fill an Area tool here, which works as a paint bucket. And then the color picker, we're going to choose black. Okay, and as I click here in the middle, we're going to have a completely dark space. So for drawing the stars, we could use the pencil tool here. So let's choose the draw on the image. We're going to click to choose a white tone here. So let me give this a bigger zoom. And now you can just draw some pixels around the screen. Okay, you can draw squares, or not always squares, because it is going to give an interesting look if you use different shapes. Okay, like that. Sometimes you make some crosses. Okay, give this some variation. Maybe try making single pixels here as well. Just click around until you fill it, and you can see the preview here of that background. And after you're done drawing that, we can just click here to save it. So this is going to be our background, and we're going to test it. Let's hit OK. So it is saved. And in our room, we have a Backgrounds tab here. And where it says foreground image, and it's saying here no background, let's click here and choose the space background. Okay, so it's looking like that now. Okay, so notice that even though we drew a very small background, this is just I think 32 by 32 pixels, no, 64 by 64 pixels, it tiles. Okay, so it repeats from time to time. Okay, and every square, every white outline you see here contains an instance of that background we made. Okay, so it's going to look like that. All right, so now let's click on run the game to see how this is looking like. We wait for the project to compile. There you go. And that's it. We have our ship in the middle of the space. Okay. Notice that's you can imagine that there are a few holes here in the background. So that means we can still make it even better. Okay. So we can open that background and edit it, and we need to add more stars here at the limit of the background. Okay. So it doesn't look like it contains a hole there. Okay, it's a bit tricky. It could be a bit tricky to make this feel continuous, to feel more easier on the eyes, but still just add a little more pixels and it's going to look more continuous. Right? So now we have a basic ship. The ship is just static in the middle of the space, but we need to learn how to make it move up and down. Okay, let's do this in the next lesson.